welcome to my side of the laundry room. My name's Rob.
And I'm Chris.
And now we're going to follow up what we started last episode and talk about some of the best forgotten toys. And these toys were innovative, some of the most imaginative, some of the best made.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because they were companies that really wanted to make a great first impression, so they pulled out all the stops. You had a good, most of the time, 5-episode miniseries
that launched most of these. Yeah.
But never was picked up for series.
Right, exactly.
Some of them have crazy numbers, but I never knew it existed, but there was a toy at one time. So, I've written on the subject before.
You have.
A couple different times in a couple different genres. I'll include some of the links in the description below if you're interested in reading any of them. But you mentioned it at the end of the last episode, Sectars.
That was a great toy line.
It was. It was one of my favorites.
Mine too. For the simple fact that you actually got holsters.
Yes.
You actually got like parts and pieces that were attached, that could bandoliers that could be buckled onto the figure. Yes. So they were really nice. You know, there were, and of course every character, they were all 5 1/4, 5 1/2.
No, I'd say 8-inch figure.
Okay, 8-inch figure. And they all came with a little bug that came with them. And
6-inch at least, I guess. Sorry.
But they were big toys. They were bigger than G.I. Joes.
Yeah.
They were bigger than even He-Mans, if memory serves. Not as
Which
wide, just tall.
Which is also a bad selling point.
Yeah, it makes it tough for vehicles. It makes it
play.
Right.
That got kids excited.
And the price point goes up because you can't.
It is,
and that was one of probably Sectar's downfalls.
Packaging.
Yep. And the bugs that came with each figure did something.
Yes.
You know, one was like a claw would grab you by the leg. Another one was a squirter. Yep. And these were great toys. And so I only had maybe 1 or 2 of the figures themselves, but they made these great bigger toys. And one, of course, was like a dragonfly and a bee, if I'm not mistaken, or spider maybe or something.
Gloves.
Yep.
You were the legs of it, but you also had like ring things you could do. Pincer's bite, wings flap. I mean, it was
nice and revolutionary.
Yes. And they had real fur, like
they were great
parts
toys
to their carapaces and everything.
And the highlight of the line was, in fact, one of the largest playsets made in the 80s, which was the Hive.
Yes.
And this was a large, big piece of plastic.
Which, in it, a la Snake Mountain to a degree, you could put your hand through it, and there's a giant tarantula thing. You know, you could reenact that part in the sewers in Big Trouble in Little China, and pull people in. So
it was a revolutionary toy line. It only had a 5 episode arc, if I'm not mistaken, right? That we got aired.
Yeah, which
was hit or miss.
Well, it was one of my biggest cartoon disappointments. Was the figures had pupilless eyes. Yes, they look like fucking bugs.
Right.
They were awesome, but yet they weren't weird. They were just different. It wasn't like Bugmen of Insectia, type of shit.
Crab people.
Exactly. But in the cartoon, they gave him pupils. I guess just for the simple fact of he needs to be looking here so the viewers know who he's talking to. Big disappointment for me.
Agreed. And I even know parts of the country didn't even get the miniseries.
No.
They just got the toy line and that was it. You know what I mean? And the toy line was like blink and it's gone. It did not last long. There was never a wave 2.
I actually had a ton of them. And
did you
it's
really?
One of the things where I kicked myself in the ass because they went on clearance. I had my parents' friends lived in Hanover. That's where Kitty City was that we went to. Okay. And they were there because they were dorks. They're the ones I've talked about in past things about they played D&D and shit when I was a toddler and I didn't know what was going on kind of thing. But they would just go there and they would buy that shit up. They had this huge like ColecoVision library because
It was on sale. It was a failing system, right? Right.
Because it was on clearance, but you could get enough games to play for a while. So,
but it was a great toy line. It was, and that was one that like met every expectation. You know, not like some of the other ones we've talked about.
And like you said, what truly made them fantastic were the bandoliers, the gun holsters. I mean, everyone came with a sidearm, and a type of rifle,
or a sword,
and a melee weapon.
Yep.
I mean, because it was technology crossed with medieval.
Yep.
Fantasy.
Like one of my favorites was like the professor type. I think he was white and blue, and I think his little figure that he came with was a squirty type thing. But he came with like a crossbow and a laser gun, and that was like, wow, what a neat toy. You know what I mean? Just what a neat toy. So that was.
But they really poured their heart and soul into that, and it didn't go anywhere.
Nope.
I mean, ColecoVision, they at the time had cornered the market on girls' toys because Cabbage Patch dolls.
Okay.
That was them. And then all the things that offshot that. So they wanted to jump into that boy toy world. That sounds really fucking bad.
But
yeah. It's just like Remco with another forgotten one of the Power Lords.
Which didn't sell well here. But that actually is a toy line that did two lines, 2 waves. The second line was very forgettable. It wasn't very widely sold. It's, but it was actually like huge overseas.
Yes.
It was
Europe really took to it.
Really took to it. And these were great toys. They were highly articulated. They were also probably 6-inch figures. Yeah. And all of them had little accoutrement and special features and things like that. But these were nice toys. They were but they were short-lived in American shelves.
Yeah.
And they were really almost like the height of articulation at the time. There really wasn't many other things that were
a heel articulation, which no toy had at the time, really.
And they had a full ball joint on the, what I mean, joint. on the shoulders. But the thing was, the downfall to the toy, the 2 main characters, in my opinion, was Adam Power, correct?
That's correct.
And I believe his love interest or significant other. They had a button in the back, and the top part of the torso would spin. And then, of course, this is Adam's alter ego, the Power Lord, or what have you.
And to paint the picture correctly, if people don't remember, it just flips around.
Correct.
There's no other feature of hiding the
alternate
heads and everything.
And the thing is, it was kind of creepy because it was an all-blue torso with arms and, of course, the face.
Veins running through
with the red, vibrant red veins running through.
And on his face, too, which looked really clustered and weird.
And the thing is that wasn't nearly as disturbing as the female counterpart. No. She had a very similar, and she would spin. And if I'm not mistaken, she was blood red with a white...
Yeah. She looked like a Cenobite from fucking Hellraiser.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So, yeah, parents are running to the store to get that for their fucking kids.
But anyway, the figure line, the bad guys, the whole entire thing, great toy line, didn't last long. Very imaginative.
Designed by Wayne Barlow, who is a great artist.
Fantastic artist.
On that cusp of being just too weird, but fucking awesome.
Like Mobius.
Yeah,
Similar,
it's
what I mean.
That 70s sci-fi book cover type art where you're like, what the fuck is this?
That never matched what was inside the book itself. Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful landscapes of just weird, unnerving kind of things.
But yet again, short-lived, not, but did well overseas. I'm going to add to your Power Lords and say one of my all-time favorite lines that gets no love, and I think they were just the coolest thing in the world, Visionaries. I loved those toys. They were bigger, they were bulkier than G.I. Joe's, they had the same articulation level as G.I. Joe, but where G.I. Joe was 3 3/4, Visionary was like a solid 4. It was just a hair bigger, and it was just a hair wider, but it really felt like a really nice toy.
Yeah, very well. I mean, they're articulated exactly like a Joe figure.
But they were really solid. I don't know any other way to, some of the failings that G.I. Joe suffered from, Visionaries necessarily didn't.
Correct.
You know what I mean? But yet again, great play sets, great vehicles. Every character had a standard that had a little hologram. And this is the mid to late 80s where holograms were the shit.
Yeah.
So, you know, and all the characters had a totem in their chest, and they could turn into said totem.
Right.
And the premise of the story was that this was a very technological society that collapsed on itself. And magic was now the major mover and shaker in the reality. And because of that, certain warriors were given aspects of these totem animals, and the standards had little things that could make them do different things like strength and run fast or wisdom or something. But the toy was great in and of itself. All the helmets, for the most part, were removable.
Yes.
They all had a melee weapon, and they all had these standards. But they were great toys. They were great articulation. The cartoon was good. And it seemed to come and like disappear the same year. I mean, like, nobody, I don't know what it was. Maybe that was the height of the Transformers, and I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was like everything about that toy line said it should have sold like gangbusters, but it didn't at all. And I had a slew of those. I love those toys. I really did.
Those were nice toys. I never had one though, but
really, that was I loved
always
them.
Wanted one. They looked cool.
And they were compatible with G.I. Joe. Yeah, you know what I mean? You could, a little bit bigger. Other than being, but I mean, still, they could, you know, they were very much compatible.
Yeah.
As far as, and Joe's could fit in some of their vehicles. Not the other way around, unfortunately, but they had the pegs. Yeah. You know what I mean? They had the foot pegs, so you could. Anyway, I enjoy that. It's one of my favorite toy lines. Really.
No, I always thought that was a cool toy line. I mean, I even got excited that they recently said they're going to relaunch a comic, which Marvel originally did.
Yes, under the Star moniker.
Yeah, but they're including it in the Hasbro universe that IDW has created.
And was also just given away, one of the characters was given away in the San Diego Hasbro Super Pack, whatever you want to call it. But that was kind of cool, too, to see a new Visionary toy. You?
See, I don't know if it's because of the things that I look for in the media, so it's kind of hard for me to go, this was forgotten, because I read into that kind of stuff.
Sure, we both do.
But, yeah, so, I mean, other than what I've already written about. Here's something that you could say is almost a disappointment, but it's forgotten. It had some merit, but Supernaturals. All they were, half of them were these cut-out ghost shape with a blank front where it was a hologram. Like half of the line were these no feet, just movable hands, and this hologram. That's the selling point of the whole thing. And like a glow-in-the-dark weapon or something. And then they had some that were very stiff leg but movable arms. And it would be, this one's a cutout of an Indian, and when you do this, you could
see the
kind of thing, you know.
Short-lived.
Very short-lived.
Really?
But I don't know if a lot of people are like lamenting like it used to come back. You know what I mean?
Well, you had written a post about it, and I think it's a line that didn't get enough credit because it was kind of in a weird spot where it fell, which was the Crystar.
Yes.
That was a great toy line.
Yeah, I always hold
the molds were
talking
fantastic
about it because that's something I want to tackle as a big, possibly multi-post thing again, like I did with the D&D toys. Because,
which is another toy line. That was a great toy line, and that just fell under the spell of nobody likes D&D anymore because they're worshiping Satan. But that was that was actually a well planned out, well executed toy line. You had big figures, you had small figures, you had a play set, you had horses,
but the play set was smaller. It didn't get crazy. It was just very nicely made.
It just was, it was nicely made. But Warduke, what was it, Ironheart or Iron Forge or whatever his name was,
Steel,
whatever.
Braveheart or something.
Yeah, sure. Anyway,
Care Bear, I can't
or William Wallace. But either way, great toy line, a lot of articulation, and some figures. Now, that was the thing that was interesting about D&D probably more than any other toy line. There was no consistent feature that made the toy line consistent, if that makes any sense. So certain characters like the elf that came out was very articulated, but yet Warduke wasn't. There was nothing consistent about that toy line. So basically they applied what they thought the character's movements should or shouldn't be. Practically revolutionary. Just in the simple fact that there was not a consistent toy. So they were great toys, start to finish, and just with 2-3 waves. That actually went pretty deep before it went,
Was it 3 or only 2? But they really uploaded a lot of shit at one time. It wasn't like a normal wave where it's like, here's 5 things. They're like, no, here's 20 fucking things. Here's some bendable monsters. What really killed that show, or the toy line,
the movement,
was the show. Had nothing to fucking do with it.
No.
And that's the weird thing. Why did they never release a fucking Hank figure or Bobby figure or fucking Uni figure? I mean, I would never buy Bobby or Uni. But
I'm saying, why didn't it ever match? You didn't even do a DM. You didn't even do, what's his name? The villain.
Avenger.
But none of that,
But they did make a Tiamat. That was the only...
Yeah.
Only link.
But
I mean, Warduke appeared once.
And so did what's his name. Yeah. And I think the Viking Warrior did too, right?
I think the Dwarf did once.
Okay. So there was never any consistency between either line. And
then they had PVC figures that were big and chunky. And these were
great.
all on the shelf at the same time, around the same price point. I could see that being confusing to a parent that didn't follow that kind of stuff,
I mean, I had a Minotaur that was completely unmovable.
Yeah.
And I also had the red and white knight, the Paladin, that was like a wave 2 or 3. But I didn't have many of the toys because that was very early on in our youth.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it seemed like the toy line was out then the cartoon, at least in my memory.
No, that's true.
And I don't know if the fact that it got canceled before there could have been a wave, like, wave 3 or wave 4 that would have actually matched it.
The only evidence that they were ever thinking anything was they released a board game, and theirs had small PVC caricatures of the characters from the cartoon.
But that was it.
Yeah,
that was really the only thing I ever saw.
PVC figures like this big. I'm sorry, I'm not selling it as impressive as they actually were, but that seems like that was sold in Europe.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, it's not nearly. It wasn't nearly as frowned upon overseas.
But there's a few things. Like there were some puzzles, some coloring books. That wave of
that tie-in, the earlier,
the paper goods portion of it,
the easier stuff to turn around on, because figures take a while. It's a casting process, it's a mold process, and all that has
And that's something, going back to the D&D line, that blows my fucking mind, as I've talked about. But the fact that D&D was on everything at one time.
Correct.
It wasn't popular, but you had your stickers in the sticker aisles. You had your
Lunchbox.
little rubby things in the craft aisle.
Lunchbox.
Lunchboxes. I mean, the toys.
Folders, school supplies.
School supplies. Yep. Yeah, a pencil sharpener of Warduke. I never knew this shit existed. If it did, I would have bought it. But, unfinished pottery kits, like you paint it. They had like Warduke and a red dragon or something. So it's like,
well, here's the thing.
Amazes me at the exact same time.
But here's the thing. I think that was out. I think it was out and it was being attacked, and I'm almost curious if our moms and dads weren't like,
well, not mine. Not mine.
Like, look over here.
Like I said, their best friends were gamers. My parents never gamed, but my mom read sci-fi books. It was natural for that kind of shit to be in the house.
Where I was a single or only child, just like yourself, but my parents were older, and my parents were like super worried about my corruption or seduction of the innocents.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm almost, if I was to bet, I don't know this to be a fact, but if I was to bet, I'm pretty sure mom's like, oh, don't you want this Superman? You know, well, yeah, I do actually. You know, whatever. It wasn't like, well, I want the Warduke one. No, I probably never even, it was probably pushed out of my peripherals.
I mean, the only place I really remember seeing them and when I purchased them were at a Ritz Camera up at the old shopping center.
Okay.
And a camera store, I guess it's some past generation thing, was like a convenience store.
Sure.
A small department store, if you will. I mean, it had everything in it. Not groceries or anything.
No, but it had all kinds of
candy aisle. I mean, it's kind of like what the pharmacy has become nowadays.
Yeah.
But
like
anyways,
a Walgreens, but it was a Ritz.
This was a camera shop, you know.
Yeah.
But they were in there. They had a toy aisle. And that's where I saw them for the first time. Because that store was right next to the grocery store. So when I was allowed to go out on my own, I could go next door and browse while my parents were getting groceries.
Like we all did. I used to go to the Century Drug, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah, right.
But I never remember seeing them, and these were big stores at the time. Ames or Hills or
Murphy's Mart.
You know. Yeah.
You know? But the thing that was great about those toys, we'll keep going back to this type of thing, it had sheaths. It had bandoliers. It had removable helmets. These were things that not every toy at that time had.
Exactly.
So
but that falls into the ones that were made different than the others.
Correct.
Because those were, like, some of them were supposed to be like a Titan and Ogre King.
Yep.
And
they were bigger than the rest of the figures.
Which were a little bit more expensive. Yep. Highly articulated.
And the dwarves were smaller than the other figures. You know, everything was comparison size.
Elves were,
small and demure.
Yes.
Yep. Smaller and demure. But they were, like I said, the fact that all of these things came with those toys, all of these different, but there was nothing consistent about the toy line. There was no consistent height line. No. There was nothing. It was whatever fit the figure, and that's what hit the marketplace. I love that. Yes, some of them were very weak on articulation, and that may have also hurt it. But you got to remember, a lot of these toys all dropped when He-Man and G.I. Joe dropped. Transformers was later to that party, but G.I. Joe hit, He-Man hit about the same time frame.
Yeah, I have to agree with that, because I remember in the comics when G.I. Joe went against Transformers, that appeared in G.I. Joe, you know.
But I mean, those all, there was a lot of competition for our dollars and our parents' dollars. So for me, you know, if I'm looking at the Titan and I'm looking at Storm Shadow 1.
Storm Shadow.
Right. Yeah. And that's what a lot of us did. It wasn't just you, it was me too, you know what I mean?
But I just don't even remember seeing them in any of the big stores.
Here's Tiamat and here's the hovercraft. You know, price point wise. You know what I'm saying?
Tiamat really wasn't that much.
Okay, fair enough.
But
here's the Tiamat and here's...
But it's like, here's a Rattler, here's Tiamat.
Fair, okay, yeah. You know what I mean? What are you going to buy as a 7, 8, whatever-year-old kid? You know, we look at it as, man, I wish I'd bought in Tiamat. But reality is we would have made the same decision that we made, you know what I mean? So, that's...
Yeah.
But I think my personal favorite out of all these forgotten toy lines, and it will always have a soft spot for me because I love the cartoon. I bought all 14 issues of the comic, and I had 1 or 2 of the toys. They just always seemed to be expensive, and it may be just in my head, I don't know. Mask.
Yeah.
That was a great toy line. It had all this cool stuff. Cars that would turn into boats, or Jeeps that would turn into boats, motorcycles turned into helicopters, a big, huge semi-truck that turned into a command center, and all, what were they, 2.5, 2 inch?
Yeah, about 2.5.
2.5 inch figures that had removable. Now here's the thing, they were semi-articulated. The legs would bend and bow, but the arms were fixed. And they all came with helmets, which was the shtick mask. And
they all had a special
ability with their mask. But the cartoon was great. The comic was great. You know, the toy line was great. And all the toys had something. They'd shoot a rocket, or they have a button on the side to make a propeller spin, or something like that.
I had one that fucking shot out saw blades.
Right.
And it was a good guy.
It's what I think of when you say good guy. But This was a totally great concept, great toy line. It was another Hasbro brainchild, if I'm not mistaken. Kenner. Yeah, that's right. It was because Kenner. But this was this was a great toy line, and yet again, it was here, and then it wasn't. And it was like, did no one buy it? Because it seemed like everybody wanted it. You know, I remember at our age, you know what I mean?
That is weird. I don't know what happened to it. They did do a few waves, but I don't want to say cheap out, but they tried to
lower their price point,
design things.
Okay.
Like they did a whole wave where it's like, here's a box, now it turns into a computer lab. Kind of just cheesy, you know, no real thought to it.
See, and I don't remember those.
Yeah, that was much later. I mean, the only reason I know it about is from reading up on it.
Okay.
But yeah, that was, I don't know if it was our age and we were out of toys, you know, moving out of that direction, or it just was that quick, you know. It's a mixture of both of those, at least personally.
But I thought it was a great toy line. Like I said, everything about it I enjoyed. And then I would say the last one that I think gets no respect, no one talks about it, and there's a multitude of reasons why. So this particular toy line followed, or attempted to follow, what made G.I. Joe popular, which was G.I. Joe was a comic first.
Yes.
Then it was a toy line. Then it was a cartoon. And this particular, they did the same thing again. Now here's the interesting thing. The comic dropped first. The toy line was second, and then I believe there was a cartoon. Now, there was like 65 episodes in the cartoon, but the cartoon was terrible. But the toys were great. The comic was even worse. And it was Cops. And we've talked about this briefly. Now, the interesting thing about Cops is the toys were fantastic, but they hit almost at the point where we were completely done with toys. Almost. It was like that 12... 11, whatever it was.
I had a good many Cops figures.
And I did too, for quote-unquote not being old enough or too old to play with toys kind of thing. But the thing that was that's interesting about Cops was that toy line would never make it today because 90% of the action feature, they fired caps.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what we're talking about,
I probably have some of the hardware here. I don't have any of the figures anymore. That's...
but this was a little paper that had a little bit of gunpowder in it.
Yeah, it's the roll caps.
Roll caps, yeah.
But you could easily buy them at the store to replace the ones you got with the Cops, but you never fucking did.
Nope.
You blew them the first day and okay.
That's it, pretty much. Now I just got a big gun. But they all had metal pieces that came out and you smacked them and it would make it sound like a gunshot.
Yeah, you could hold the little gun or try to hold it in his little hand. And psh, 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 psh.
But the thing that was unique about Cops was they were big figures. They were 6, 7, maybe even 8-inch figures in some cases.
Yeah. Well...
And they were fully articulated, which was almost unheard of for the size of the figure and the scope of it. And then certain characters had cloth jackets and... you know, briefcases that opened up and
their Tommy gun goes in it.
Yeah.
With a thing to still put the caps through it.
So this was a great toy line. Like I said, it hit late. At least my memory says it. But everything about it was they were really trying to push that to be another G.I. Joe, and it almost was, for lack of a better term. But it just, everything around it, other than the toy. So whoever did the toy design, you know,
and the
everything else was
great.
Yeah.
The art on it, you know, was an interpretation of that character. You know.
And these were nice figures too. They were thick, they were solid, they were well built. These were nice toys.
And they even had the peg on the back like G.I. Joe.
Yep.
I mean, they were just large Joes. Heavy articulation.
And that is a toy line that no one ever talks about at all. It's almost like time forgot it.
And the thing is, that cartoon, I think, ran differently for people.
It did. It was all over the place.
It was all over the place.
And it was huge. It was a huge... It went like 65 episodes.
Yeah. But that was the time period where a season was 65 episodes. And like some of these shows that you're like, oh, it ran forever. Actually, it's only one season. It's just
the seasons were
episodes were spread out.
You know, G.I. Joe, I think the Sunbow series, right? That was 3 seasons with Sunbow. Yeah. And then it goes to Filmation or Dick, right? Which one was it? Dick.
Yeah.
Dick. It's Dick.
In some cases, they are Dick.
But...
yeah. Oh, boy. That's just a bad era for G.I. Joe.
It was a horrible year. That's when you had live action commercials.
Yeah. Everyone did at that time period, though.
Mm-hmm. But you got great things like the Cobra Rat and stuff like that in that time frame. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
They just were bad toys.
Here's a question.
Sure.
And this is off of a forgotten toy line story. But, okay, Transformers, the movie. When did that come out? 86?
86 or 87, but yeah, somewhere in there.
Do you think, and I can answer for me at least, the death of Optimus affected your fandom? Because we were 10, we'd still be playing with them to some degree.
There was 2 things that affected my fandom with Transformers, probably more so than G.I. Joe. One was truly price point. Transformers were effing expensive.
They were.
And it took a whole hell of a lot more to get enough money together to get the guy you really wanted from the Transformers. Okay?
And it was one of those toys that it seemed like, wow, I really like these Generation 1 figures. And you go back to the store a week later and they're Generation 2. And they're made a little bit different. They're not the characters that you're fantasizing about.
But I'm saying if you wanted an Ultra
Yeah.
Magnus, you were going to shell out $25.
Oh,
if that's, if we're going from the era.
Yeah.
So at the same time, if memory serves, you're in wave 4 or 5 of G.I. Joe. I think that's like the Crystal Ball era, if I'm not mistaken, Raptor era, somewhere in there. And maybe a wave before that, maybe Bats wave. You know what I mean? Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I just...
It's the era that I associate most with G.I. Joe. Because you had Alpine, Quick Kick, Bazooka, Footloose, Dusty,
Shipwreck.
Shipwreck.
Yep.
All these characters all came out at one. The new Snake Eyes.
That was the great run. And at that time, yet again, I think part of it was price point. I think part of it was killing Optimus, which pissed me off, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I felt like that was the death of an era.
It was, but it just made it easier because I can tell you this, the first few generation Transformers that I had, which wasn't many, I don't think anybody had tons. I mean, not that I knew, or maybe you did, but I mean, nobody had a lot of the first generation Transformers. I had a shit ton of Joes, because they were $3. I remember, I remember that like vividly. It was $3. Even the peg warmers everybody had because you went in, you wanted to get a Joe. Oh, there's Bazooka. All right, screw it, I'll get Bazooka. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I think between that and the few Gen 2, Gen 3 figures that I got, like, that Grimlock was not made the same way as that Optimus.
Correct.
So it became easier to...
But that, again, the first couple generations, still today, who am I fucking kidding? Still to this day, there are 2 or 3 transforming properties in Japan. Everything from Microman...
Yeah.
Which is where, like, the Megatron came from, where it makes sense. It's household items that turn into stuff.
Right.
Soundwave came from this line. And then you had Takara, which with their line, and I'm not sure...
Takara Changers.
Yes. So they were mishmashing those in toy form, which sometimes didn't... With Jetfire, Skyfire, with the anime, plus with the Robotech lawsuit thing going on. I mean... It's weird when you finally remove that from the Transformers line, and Hasbro is making them themselves. Yeah,
that was my thing. It became a cheaper toy, and I'm not saying I was smart enough.
A gaudier toy. I mean, before where you had, oh, he's just a white Porsche
with some racing spark, right?
Lamborghini, and now all of a sudden it's like, here's a Dayglow fucking.
Well, Rodimus Prime.
Yeah.
Or Hot
that
Rod,
was
either one of them.
In that era.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's how...
The only toy I wanted out of that entire movie was Springer.
I liked Cup.
I did too,
and
but
the Wreck Car toy.
Well, the Wreck Car was very nice.
I remember it being expensive.
It was, but I'm saying the Springer because that was the cool car, helicopter, and he had a sword. Right? So that was the one I wanted, and even that was disappointing because when I got Springer that Christmas or whatever it was like, you know, it wasn't...
It's like when I think about Transformers, and I'm sorry we got away from Forgotten Toys, but it's a topic we'll cover again. But Transformers in my mind, when I think my first figure, my mind always goes to Mirage. The open-wheeled F1. But the thing is, he wasn't my first one, the more I think about it. Blue Streak was.
The Cop, right?
The Cop, and I broke him within like a day or two. And it just wasn't the same. It's weird how
it is. You're right about that. You're right about that.
Oh, Mirage, which is a nice toy.
Great toy.
Yeah.
My first one was Jetfire. That was it. And that was the only one I had for quite a while. Because I think at that time that was like a $50 toy or whatever it was.
It was expensive.
I couldn't. Yeah, exactly. I'm not. And I can remember not getting other Transformers. For probably until they finally started to equalize with the pricing and the volume matching. What was wanted of them. I mean, eventually I did get Soundwave. I think I had Shockwave.
Shockwave was the bomb.
Yeah, he was.
And there were knockoffs of them. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes.
Which, to this day, I would gladly take one of those even.
Take any of them, really.
Yeah. But that's another one that I saw at Ritz. It was like that Generation 1, I came right at the end of it. And I think since I played with G.I. Joe and more action figure, my parents saw them as, they're car toys. He doesn't really like cars.
And see, that became it easier because my dad never understood. My mom didn't care. She just like, okay, this is what he wants, and that, But Dad kind of understood Transformers. He's a very linear, one-dimensional type guy. I like cars, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was easy for me to sell my father on getting me a toy because in the package it looked like a race car.
Yeah.
In the package it looked like a Porsche. In the package it looked like a Lamborghini.
It's weird nowadays they sell them, most of them, in robot mode.
Yes.
Now car mode.
Yes.
What the fuck's up with that?
It was the complete opposite when we were kids.
And there's some new ones that are, they're taking a retro look in them. I mean, even those, what are they called? The ones that spring up. The light blue and white. That look like little jets that you just slap down.
Oh, yeah.
Which even, I would call that as a disappointing toy, but they were still so fucking awesome.
Yeah, they were.
Know what I mean?
And they were cheap Transformers.
And if that was any other toy line, it would be like, that's crap. But with Transformers, it was...
But that was affordable.
Awesome.
It's like you said, the micro changers and all that stuff. I mean, I can tell you that my first... See, the thing is they weren't around. So it's not like... You know what I mean? They were so rare when they came in, they were sold as quick. So I know people was like, oh yeah, my first Transformer was Cliff Jumper, or mine was Bumblebee, or mine was Brawl, or Brawn, or whatever. So my next Transformer was a smaller one. They were all smaller ones because you could you could find them, and B, they were under $10 if memory serves.
And I remember, I don't know, it must have been just a good time in the household for once, but one Easter, I think, getting one.
Like in your basket.
It was Cliff Jumper. No. Oh. Cliff Jumper was a little Trans Am, right?
Yes.
Or was he the red Bumblebee? I think Charger was the Trans Am, maybe. And Cliff Jumper was the Bumblebee clone. Anyway.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Apologies. But I remember getting him for Easter in my basket. And it was the time, I guess you could say, the second printing of them, where they came with a little white pullback.
Yes.
It didn't transform.
Yes, and they also had the pressure sticker.
That's when they started having those.
Yes, where you put to discover if he's an Autobot or a Decepticon. Yes. But I remember.
Which became the staple of those figures from
forever.
Then on out.
Yep, which led to the creation of Battle Beast, Forgotten Toy.
Beautiful forgotten toy.
Yes. Minor articulation, great concept, great molds. and were affordable.
Yeah.
And
it blows my mind now to know that that was part of the Transformers universe.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Where they actually met in an episode. I think they... In Japan. They never aired it here.
Of course
not.
But
yeah, they're just neat. You had some of them that were like true
but you paid
animals.
You paid $8 and got 3 of them in a pack.
Yeah. And you didn't know what element they were.
Yeah, until you got, you know what I mean?
Because I guess they were trying to make a game of it. Rock, paper, scissors.
Well, that's what the whole... that was the original concept of it. But they were affordable. And I will always say to the day I die, because there was a time where Transformers weren't on the shelves.
Right.
Be it brief, but there was a time. Transformers, until Beast Wars, were an expensive, higher-end toy. And they were all through the 80s. You know, it was where I always say that G.I. Joe was the greatest toy line ever, for the simple fact that you had $3, you can get a G.I. Joe. You had $5, you can get a small little thing that went on the Joe. Right. You know, for $7, you could get a ferret. For $10, you could get a Trouble Bubble. You know, for $15, you could get...
And then at 15, you're starting to get into the bigger Transformers.
And that's when you're...
And by that time, you're like, well, I could get Sergeant's... I remember Sergeant Slaughter
and the Triple T tank.
And his Triple T tank being priced so fucking cheap. I had 2 of them.
Mm-hmm. I know.
It was like $8 or something, if I remember.
But that's what I'm saying. Yeah, price point was what kept Joe alive. Yeah. Yes. Was there
But they sold the shit out of Slaughter, too. That was the thing where it's like, we're going to give it a little bit cheaper so everybody has it.
Was the Command Center $100? Absolutely. Yes. Was the Terror... Or, the
Terradome.
Terradome... Was that like $120, $140 or whatever?
Probably.
Yes. But you know what it came with? A ship. Okay?
And a figure.
And a figure. You know? And, I mean, there was always multiple price points with G.I. Joe. Yeah. Transformers was expensive and more expensive.
I think, and that's the thing nowadays, trying to think of this at a different level. Toys nowadays, one price point.
Mm-hmm. Well, you don't get the playset.
There's no fluctuation. Well, some of them you do, but I'm saying a WWE figure is a WWE figure is a WWE figure. And I hate saying that, but Christ, Walmart has more wrestling figures than any other property.
But here's the thing.
Except Pops.
You look at, we'll use Walmart. We'll use any, I don't care.
I'm saying the everyday I pop in and I cruise the toy.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we go to Toys R Us maybe every 3 months or something, you know, but...
Right. Yeah. But where's the play sets? The thing is, you know, when we were kids, there was a Star Wars play set. Yes. There are a wall of Star Wars toys in any Target, Walmart, whatever, okay?
Yeah.
There's no play set. There's no play set. Now, if I want a play set, I got to go buy a Lego.
Or the little kid versions.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
Like the Galactic Heroes and shit.
But you barely get ships. You get an iconic X-Wing. How many effing X-Wing molds are there?
Yeah.
Okay? How many? There's a Millennium Falcon.
But to their credit, and the one that I think Play School did before that, I might be wrong, Fisher Price, I can't remember. There's been 2 incarnations of the little kid Star Wars figures.
Okay.
Ones are non-movable.
Oh, yeah. And then the ones are a little bit more. Right.
They actually did a very big selection of vehicles and shit for it. It's amazing.
They're great toys. That's
But that's where I'm saying that's where your playset is nowadays.
And I think that's bullshit. Personally, I do. I think it's bullshit.
The thing is, action figures have priced themselves out of fucking having a playset.
Well, you're right.
Well, if one figure costs $15 to $20, well, Christ, a playset must cost $250, $300,
and nobody's going to pay that. They're going to buy a PlayStation 4. I know the reasoning.
I do not fucking get where the difference lies, and I'm sure there's some big economical thing about it.
Probably not.
That isn't my business to talk about at all. But a G.I. Joe figure was
$3.
$3 to $3.50. I remember when they got to $4.50.
Yeah, that was a KB Toys.
You're selling the exact same thing in a newer property, but a 3 3/4 action figure,
$7, $8, $9.
Yeah. Up to 10.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
What's the fucking difference here?
Well, not only that, if I want... Look, the nicest action figure on the market right now is either the Star Wars Black Series or any of the Marvel Legends.
Yes.
They're the nicest action figure, well articulated, usually well accessorized, all that good stuff, right? The stuff you're going to spend.
Yes.
Every effing one of those is $20.
Yeah.
Every one.
That's why I was honored for my birthday. My kids picked out the Spider-Man Jack-o'-lantern figure. Oh, Daddy loves Halloween and comic books, so yeah. But it's like,
I'm in Target the other day, and the black figures are marked down to like $9, $10. Now, of course,
they're blowing out.
Yeah. Of course. But it's 8,000 Jyn Ursos and 8,000 whatevers, okay? The Beach Trooper.
Yeah.
And I'm actually like contemplating picking them up. I'm not a fan of either. I'm kind of picky with my black figures, you know what I mean? Which would I buy? Yeah. But I was like, man, that's like more than half off almost. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like, man, maybe I should, nah, I didn't.
Yeah, and they also have a lot of Kylo unmasked. It's like, the mask makes him fucking cool. Who wants to buy this version?
I agree.
No offense, Adam Driver, but you know.
I still love it. Yeah. I would love to see a Jakku playset or a Star Killer base playset. That's all. I know.
We got them, and they were cheesy and they were cheap, but they transported us there.
Yes.
I mean, the Hoth playset is just a white, bumpy textured thing with a turret that goes here.
That was it.
And
the solar array or whatever the hell it was. Those were nice.
Cheap as fuck, but you were in Star Wars. You were there.
Yes.
And I'm sure kids would appreciate that now with some of their things.
And all I'm saying is you can make a decent, cheesy one for $40, for $50. I mean,
ethically, it should be a lot cheper.
Ethically, yes, I agree. But that's my point. And you know what? Maybe they don't sell anymore. Maybe that's part of the problem too. Maybe their kids aren't going to. If they're going to, parents are going to spend $40, $50 on a toy. They're going to buy the newest PS4.
It's the whole thing of, I look at my kids' stuff and it's like, Jesus Christ, but it's bigger. My son likes big trucks, so 5 of them fit in a box and are overflowing. You're like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, you're right about that.
It's probably the same thing. Oh, that's going to be awful.
Where are we going to put it? We're going to store it. Where are we going to do this? Where are we going to do... I'm with you. I'm with you. But yet I sit on Facebook pages and eBay and Amazon and look at all the old play sets from when we were kids, and I see guys our age who've converted a garage to a U.S. flag combat scenario with a Rattler coming in and a Sky Striker taking off and stuff like, I love that. I do love it. I wish I had the time to do it.
I wish I had the money to do it.
Ding, ding, ding. But I'm either one. But I would love to do stuff like that. Yeah. So.
And that's the thing. And I guess this is a good way. I mean, this doesn't fit our discussion at all, but that's why I feel like a horrible fan. It's one of the things, being a dork that we're dorky of, being a fan equals spending money.
Oh, yeah, it's inevitable.
I don't have a budget to buy comics every month or week. I don't have budget to buy new toys, unless it's a gift or something.
Yeah,
So it's like, I weigh it where it's like, I can't even keep up with conversations with any of the new shit. I'm taken aback, like, oh my God, they did that? How long ago? Fucking 12 years ago? You know?
That's right.
Because time has slipped by.
Sure.
So it's like, Jesus, am I a dork anymore? Or am I just a dad? Am I...
Well, you're both. And that's the juggle.
Yeah.
That you find. And
I mean, I think that's why I rely so heavily on retro, because depending on what it is, my wife feels more comfortable with letting me get it. Like, when we first met, and she's like, you can't collect all this stuff all the time. Pick 5, your top 5, what you need to have. Okay, then that's what we'll focus on for holidays and shit. Mm-hmm. So it's like Ninja Turtles stuff. Anything comic booky, it's like... So anyway, sometimes I just look at myself like, am I even a fan anymore? Because I don't pour money into it. I can't invest in it anymore.
But investing in it is to me ridiculous, because any of it's ridiculous because they hit us hardest. Okay, so you feel guilty. I say I'd rather go to 5 yard sales and 15 auctions and 14 flea markets and look for the vintage Firefly that than go buy G.I. Joe Collectors Club and give them $100 a year and get 2 action figures a year or whatever.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. Is that a nice figure, what they're putting out? Absolutely it is.
It is.
They're gorgeous. Okay? I can't justify giving them $100 and only getting a quarterly newsletter and 2 figures a year and
a patch or something.
In a patch and an invite to the JoeCon.
Yeah.
All of which I would love to have the money and the time to do that.
Yes.
I'm just saying that.
But I'm just saying that sometimes I question myself because of the.
You've amassed your collection. There's no reason to keep spending money if you.
Unless I see. I mean,
unless something
that
of course there is, but I'm saying you've amassed your collection. You have your stuff. That's the way I look at it. So I'm at peace with it.
But I've also sold off a lot of stuff.
Sure, so have I.
You know, so it's like I'm at the minimal, which is sad because it does seem like a lot of my collection. But it's like you get on Facebook, show your collection. It's like I'm proud of mine, but then you see pictures of dudes where it's actual glass shelves from
showcases and things like that,
and shit, and it's like, oh.
Well, you know,
yeah,
you're gonna buy that or a new faucet.
Good call. But anyway, we're going to end it there. This conversation got a little bit longer than I anticipated, and we go all over the place, but it's always a blast, and I hope you guys enjoy watching it too. So, keep being rad, stay dorky. My name's Rob.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll see you next time.